Welcome to How Meets History. Today, we're looking at what really happens when you leave your phone charging all day, and whether this everyday habit is quietly affecting your battery more than you think.
Today, we're going to use these visuals to finally get to the bottom of a question that I know everyone has asked about their phone.
So, we're diving into that age-old question. Is leaving your phone charging all night actually bad for it? Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll hit the main question, bust a huge myth, find out what really hurts your battery, see how your phone protects itself, discover the perfect charging zone, and then look ahead to what's next.
All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get right to the big question, the one you're really here for. I mean, we've all done it, right? Plug your phone in, go to sleep, wake up to 100%. Easy. But there's always that nagging voice in the back of your head that you're slowly killing the battery. It's got to be one of the biggest debates for phone owners. So, what's the real story?
Well, the short answer is kind of complicated. It's a bit of a yes, but situation. Yeah, leaving your phone sitting at 100% for hours on end does speed up its chemical aging. But, and this is a big but, today's phones are way smarter than you think. They've got defenses built right in, so it's not the disaster you might be picturing.
Okay, so if our phones are so smart, why are we all so paranoid about this? Where did this idea even come from? Well, it's not just something we made up. It's actually a ghost from the past, a leftover fear from much, much older tech.
Yeah, this whole worry is a hangover from old-school batteries. Look at this timeline. Back in 1973, those first giant mobile phones used something called nickel-cadmium batteries. And believe me, those were a totally different beast than the lithium-ion batteries we've had since, the first iPhone came out.
See, those old batteries had this really weird problem called the memory effect. Basically, if you didn't let them die completely before plugging them in, they'd literally forget how much power they could hold. They'd think their new, smaller capacity was the max, and your battery life would just get shorter and shorter.
And what's so wild is looking at how things have changed. That old rule, drain your battery all the way down, was absolutely crucial for those old nickel-cadmium ones. But for the lithium-ion battery in the phone in your pocket right now, that memory effect is totally gone. Poof. In fact, following that old advice today is pretty much the worst thing you could possibly do. So, if it's not the memory effect, then what is the problem? What's actually hurting our modern batteries? Turns out, it has nothing to do with memory and everything to do with basic chemistry and physics.
Okay, so there are two main bad guys when it comes to battery health. The first is prolonged high voltage. Think of that as the stress the battery feels when it's just sitting there fully charged at 100%. The second villain, and honestly the bigger one, is heat. And when you put those two together, that's the perfect storm for wrecking your battery.
And this just shows you how deadly that combo is. A battery sitting at 100% charge in a normal room loses around 20% of its capacity in a year. Not great. But if you put that same battery in a hot car, that loss jumps to a whopping 35%. Heat is basically the gas pedal for battery aging.
And this quote really nails it. The point is, even with all the smart tech in our phones, our habits are what really count. The software is clever, but it can't change the laws of chemistry, right? It can't stop you from, say, playing a heavy-duty game while it's charging on a hot day.
So how do our phones actually deal with all this? Well, the good news is, the people who make them know all about this stuff. They get the science, and they've built in some really clever defenses, both in the software and the hardware, to fight back against this damage. Let's start with the software side. You've probably seen a setting like optimized battery charging or adaptive charging. What it does is pretty genius. Your phone learns your routine. It figures out when you usually wake up. So it'll fast charge up to 80%, then just wait. It holds it there for most of the night and only finishes that last 20% right before your alarm. It's a simple trick, but it drastically cuts down the time your battery spends in that high-stress 100% zone.
But it's not just software. A lot of phones now have this awesome hardware feature called bypass charging. And this is a total game changer, especially if you're someone who, games or does other intense stuff while your phone is plugged in. Here's how it works. Once your battery is full, the power from the charger literally bypasses the battery and goes straight to running the phone. The battery is just taken out of the equation. This is huge because it stops those little mini cycles of charging and discharging, and it produces way less heat. So it tackles both of our main villains at the same time.
Okay, so we know the risks and we know the tech that helps. But what can you do? If you really want to be proactive about this, there's one single strategy that's proven to work.
Yeah, 40%. The science is super clear. If you can keep your battery living in that sweet spot between about 20% and 80%, you can cut down on battery aging by up to 40%. Think about that over 2 or 3 years. That is a huge difference.
So what does this mean for us? It means we got to unlearn our old habits. Instead of that one big long charge overnight, it's actually way healthier to give your phone little top-ups throughout the day. It's kind of like snacking, instead of having one massive heavy meal. And whatever you do, try not to let it die completely. And please, don't play intense games while it's charging. That's just a recipe for heat.
I love this analogy. If you think of your battery like a muscle, it all makes perfect sense. A muscle doesn't want to be flexed as hard as it can all the time, right? That causes strain. Keeping your battery at 100% is just like that. It's holding a constant, stressful flex. It's happiest when it's just relaxed, somewhere in the middle.
Now, all of this is super important today, but we also have to remember battery tech is moving at lightning speed. Everything we've just talked about, it might not even be a concern in just a few years.
And why should we care? I mean, beyond just our own phones. Well, check out this number. If we can make our electronics last just a little bit longer, it could save consumers billions of dollars. And maybe even more importantly, it would help reduce that massive, growing mountain of electronic waste, which is a serious problem for the planet.
And the future is right around the corner. We're talking about solid-state batteries. Samsung's even targeting 2027 for those. They're supposed to be safer, charge way faster, and last so much longer. And that's not even the end of it. People are working on sodium-ion, graphene, all kinds of new chemistries that could totally change the game.
And that leaves us with this really cool final thought. What if the goal isn't just a better battery, but a battery that's practically invincible? Imagine a future where your battery actually outlasts the phone itself, where you'll get a new phone because the screen breaks or the processor feels slow, but the battery, it's still going strong? That would completely change our relationship with our devices.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.